Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be able to join you virtually at the 2020 Environics Analytics User Conference. My name is Ian Mawdsley. I am the Insights and Research Manager at Libro Credit Union, and I am excited to share some insight into how we communicate data projects for greater buy-in at Libro. That hopefully gives you a few ideas in your own role. In my role, I am incredibly fortunate to get to lead and work with an awesome team where on a daily basis we get to tackle big and small questions that help Libro both run and grow our business. We're focused on helping others make better data-informed decisions. While I love all things data, I am most passionate about how we translate that into meaningful insights and love getting the opportunity to hop into that information sales part of my job to share it with others and get their buy-in. Libro Credit Union, for those of you that haven't heard of us before, is focused on banking with a difference. We are a purpose-driven company and a full-service financial institution that serves over 100,000 people and businesses across southwestern Ontario. We provide all the banking services you expect from a financial institution, and I am proud to share we differentiate on advice and personalized coaching from experts who want to work with you to help you prosper. We're also a certified B Corp and a financial cooperative where Libro customers, those 100,000 people and businesses, are literally owners. And as an owner, you have opportunities to impact our organization and receive a share of our profits annually, which I think is pretty cool. On top of that, every dollar we make stays in southwestern Ontario, where we're striving to inspire meaningful change in our communities. We want to bring Libro's value proposition to more people and businesses in southwestern Ontario, and our data strategy is a key component of that. This is especially true as we maneuver through COVID, where communicating with owners, meeting their needs and supporting them has to be our number one focus. And data is at the center of our ability to do that effectively. We started our current data journey 5 years or so ago when we knew that we had to do something more with our data or start to fall behind. And as part of that strategic effort, we connected with Environics with questions aimed at learning more about the people who bank with us to improve not only engagement with them, but to help grow our business by attracting more just like them. That, of course, is easier said than done. The financial industry remains incredibly competitive with traditional big banks, the proliferation of fintechs, and the increasing expansion of big established tech like Apple, Google, and Amazon making their way in. Awareness of both credit unions and Libro in southwestern Ontario is still lower than we'd like. Familiarity is lower still, in particular in those major urban centers where we're trying to grow. So it is a bit of an uphill battle, and we have finite resources to generate that same level of buzz and awareness of our brand that others might not. And even when we do break through the noise, consumer inertia makes switching uncommon. So despite those industry challenges, we've been growing, and we've been growing well. And on average, people who bank with Libro love their experience, and that showcases in strong brand loyalty. We do aim to differentiate based on our value proposition of coaching, advice, and community. And we see that showcase in consistently high owner satisfaction ratings and strong word of mouth and referrals. Today, we're using data to try and enhance that even more. We're also using data to try and find people who align with our brand and our message to put our marketing dollars to more effective use, which I suspect many of you are thinking about as well. We're moving away from that old mentality of trying to win and grow with everyone. We're not fully there yet, but we've made huge strides on our journey. So our partnership with Environics has played an integral role in that. And since 2018, we have partnered with them in developing a few different models. We partnered on custom market segments and personas that are helping us to bring strategic focus to our company around market opportunity and the people who bank with us. This was built using a combination of Libro data as well as Environics Prism, demographic, behavioral, and attitudinal data. During the same time, we also developed these custom economic segments that are aimed at understanding where opportunity exists within our current customer base to grow those relationships even more. And both models are enabling us to make better decisions focused on growing internally and externally. In the past year or so, we've been leveraging Environics's business data to develop some business segments internally. And these, alongside the custom segments from the previous slide, come together to form what is becoming our segment strategy, where we're leveraging this internal and third-party data to help us focus on particular markets. Most recently, we've even used this information to help us model our portfolio and forecast growth over the long term. We have been busy with Environics over the past few years. And while work is still underway in these initiatives, we know we'll never truly be finished with them as we continue to maintain buy-in and iterate these over time to stay relevant. So success will continue to be understood and evaluated over time. But what we have accomplished in the past few years is significant. We have introduced completely new ideas and new concepts that have company-wide impact. We've rallied teams from senior leaders to the front line to gain buy-in at various levels, and it is working for the most part, I'd say. And we've seen a lot of success drive out of that. So that brings me to the title and topic of this presentation, which is data is only half the battle. And I am a firm believer that effective data projects require communications that make information both actionable and as easy to understand as possible. This is a real challenge that I think all of us face, but certainly data analytics and insight leaders face, and is summed up very nicely in the image on the screen, where we're trying to move from data to information all the way through to insight, and then eventually to this level of impact. And how do we get there? That leads to the challenge. How do we communicate for effective buy-in, effective impact, and long-term success? That is a challenge that we have to consider when we're working through the different data projects that we have. And if your company is anything like ours, people have information overload. And that's not something that's going away. If staff weren't overwhelmed before COVID, they are more likely to be now for various reasons, which makes communication as vital as ever as we are delivering still more and new data and information to them on a regular basis. I can think of a number of things that we have added during COVID to support owners and our teams that we weren't doing beforehand. The build it and leave it approach doesn't work anymore, not well anyway. A PwC or PricewaterhouseCoopers report on upskilling the Canadian workforce tells us that the explosion of tech advances is transforming the way we work, and not just in learning the new tech, but also trying to make sense of growing amounts of data. Just think in your own roles in your own companies, how much new data you have access to that you didn't a couple of years ago. Forrester reports that 91% of organizations find improving the use of data insights challenging, and the gap isn't referring to data availability or tools. We have those. A lot of us have built dashboards and reports and have tools for staff. Rather, the challenge is the lack of skills to use those tools and data to drive successful business outcomes. And I'd add to that the lack of support in helping those people get there. We have a lot of staff expected to use different things, and they don't have the level of knowledge and support they need to do that as effectively as they might like. So it's no surprise that the Data Literacy Project shares an eye-opening 74% of employees report feeling overwhelmed or unhappy when working with data, so much that it impacts sick leave. That might not be the group I'm talking to right now as data analysts and data business leaders. However, the people that you're building your projects with and for are those individuals, and you need to consider the impact that the data and that the work you're doing has on them. So why is this important? Well, at Libro, our competitive advantages revolve around people. They revolve around our employees. If we had just developed segmentation, these custom market and economic segments, and said, here you go, I guarantee we wouldn't be talking about them anymore, and Environics would not have invited me to present today. We have been successful with many of our more recent data projects because we're purposefully building in time to plan how we connect the dots with the appropriate teams, whether that's leaders or frontline staff. we are finding ways to empower employees with the level of information and support that they need to be successful using it in their jobs. A quote I like is from Henry Ford, where he said, "If everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself." As I mentioned, our first major initiative on this journey with Environics was developing custom segments to help us create the strategic focus for Libro and start to work into the opportunity. The challenge in front of us was really moving from our corporate focus on Southwestern Ontario to these data-informed segment clusters, then make them easily understood and actionable through personification, with the real challenge being at the end of that in trying to create meaningful impact with the employees and earning buy-in to that idea of market segments, to the strategy that we're trying to build. The scope of a project like this impacted our entire organization, which today stands at 700 employees and growing. That's a lot of people that need a base level of awareness, some understanding, and buy-in over time. I'm going to share a few approaches that worked well for us on this journey to help create that awareness, to create some understanding and that buy-in. But it is important to note that how you gain buy-in and plan communications at your company may need to vary based on different factors like the scope of your project, your company culture, and certainly who you're trying to connect with as your audience. Your job is to determine that and work with your company to get the impact that you want to have. So the first thing we did, and this has been for every data project, is engage leadership from start to finish. It might feel a bit obvious. I don't think it happens as often as we may expect. Having leaders bought in can change the game, especially if you're trying to gain organizational buy-in around a project like we did with custom market and economic segments. In my experience, it's also better to build alongside and with leaders versus just building for them. And so for segmentation, for our growth models, we brought together diverse project teams, including owner-facing leaders, admin leaders, executive leadership. And if you aren't sure if someone should be invited, see if they're interested, have a conversation. People will determine for themselves as well. As we built the models, we brought back leaders occasionally to get their input and feedback on the direction and timeline. And once the models were complete, we brought them back to review the summary data insights and help us develop our segment strategy. And in the example of custom market segments, we had leaders from various teams in active debate about the segment strategy we'd eventually set. So much so we had to set multiple meetings because we couldn't work through everything. And that's really productive. That's a really good take out of a meeting, to have to set more to continue a good, robust conversation. We followed that with more exercises, like the one you see on the screen, where our advice and service delivery leaders, both admin and owner-facing, provided input into the personas that we built, marrying their market expertise, their market knowledge that we don't have or see necessarily through the data, with the market and owner data insights that we developed with Environics. This is important because now they have a stake in it. Brand or marketing didn't just come up with these segments and say, here they are, run with them. We said, can you get involved and become part of this process? So now it not only resonates more with them having had a hand, but their peers also recognize this as well. And that's incredibly valuable in trying to grow awareness and get buy-in through this journey. When you involve more people and more teams, it can be more time consuming. So you need to find the right balance for your projects. However, involvement not only helps communicate this work better with those leaders and their own teams, but it helps them develop a willingness to act as ambassadors for the work. These images on the screen represent personas that were posted in various rooms at our head office, segments on our intranet and in our corporate business plan to grow awareness of them. We initiated some of this, and then some was initiated by leaders, and then some more was initiated by leaders asking for their own copies to include in their own work or to include in their own decks or in their own offices. With the project scope of segmentation, buy-in from leadership was truly non-negotiable, I think, and we would have had an incredibly tough time gaining the success and buy-in that we've had from it had we not done this upfront. Number 2 here, show me the value. What's in it for me? I think this idea of WIFM has been around for a few years now, and it's very true, especially here. When you're working with leaders or whether you're working with frontline staff, an absolute must is getting their buy-in through helping them understand what's in it for them or what the value will be to them. The onus is on us to show them the value. There's onus on them to give it a chance and to participate and try and understand, but the onus is on us to show them the value. And if a project fails, it's going to land back with us. So how do you do this? What are some of the steps you can take? Well, there's various steps. And I think the first one, book one-on-ones, book team discussions. Time spent walking people through a project and its value to them is a really important step. And yes, this takes time and it's totally worth it. We spent hours of discussions with individual teams like finance, credit, human resources, our regional teams, all to bring them on board with this. And I know COVID has changed how you might do this a little bit, but it can still be effectively done through video chat conversations. As you're doing this, remember too, it's not one size fits all. You need to tailor your conversations, bring examples that are applicable to them and their teams. How we did this was by asking questions ahead. We asked them what were some of the challenges that they faced. And so, for example, in HR, the challenges they faced in hiring, training, and recruitment. We asked them what were some of the things they were thinking about or that they wanted to do. And then we took that information and we used it to deliver data that was catered to them so that we could try and tackle some of those challenges with them and showcase how segments could be used. That was valuable in bringing them along this journey. And of course, you're not going to bring everybody along. And so plan for some pushback. Know that it's going to happen and that not everyone's going to buy in right away and sometimes ever. So know it will be there and plan for it. At Libro, our front line, those who work directly with our owners have taken the longest to get that level of awareness that we want, that level of understanding of these custom segments, which is fairly normal, I think, based on their roles and what they're focused on doing at Libro. We were relying on large group sessions or their leaders to share the message. And what we found is that wasn't creating the level of engagement that we wanted. And so what we actually did was we brought it to what we call a culture team at Libro, which is about 20 to 25 staff from across the organization, and asked them questions, engage them in what they thought about these market segments. And we heard everything from this is cool to so what to where can I learn more to why should I care. And it was a really valuable session in helping us determine what could we do differently to try and reinforce this message. And that's the last one, which is reinforcement is needed along the way. So don't think you're done after you've launched it or the initial push. We have annual meetings every year with leaders and embryonics to review segmentation updates and make sure that people are staying aware of this. And we bring it up as often as we can, and you're going to get a few eye rolls, so be it. It is really valuable over time. And the last one, on any data project, make sure to celebrate the wins, big and small. This applies to celebrating with those actively working on the project, as well as those who are trying to engage with the work. We want to keep people and get people excited about what we're doing. When we went through this originally with custom market segments and with other data projects, we're not all in the same location. So we made an effort to celebrate with lunches, especially for our BI and our data teams who worked hard out of our Essex location. We would go to them. We wouldn't ask them to come to us. We'd make sure we made time for them. This isn't as possible these days during COVID, of course. However, you still need to do it, and you need to find new ways to do it, whether that's sending treats, whether that's setting up some happy hour drinks on a Friday and just talking about how things are going, not just get work done meetings. I think it is valuable, especially on those long-term journeys where people get winded and bored and tired of working on the same thing, including yourself. Help keep that enthusiasm and focus high by celebrating together. We also want to celebrate with others. And so it's just as much about getting others excited about the work that we've done in creating this awareness, interest, and buy-in. In the case here, we had contests and prizes and activities. We heard from the culture team that people really weren't engaging with it. So we found ways to try and engage. And this was a segmentation contest where we had people tell us which segments they felt they aligned with and then share why and add some pictures relating to their life. We had about 70 or 80 staff from across the organization participate, which helped create engagement with them, but then with others who were reviewing and looking at this who maybe didn't participate themselves. And then we continued to celebrate their engagement by engaging back with them and using some of this to support the work that we were doing. When you have people interested, open to learning and engaging, this is a really strong opportunity to engage them, and it is so valuable in driving this conversation forward. And just the last one here, take time to celebrate others. This can be celebrating those on the project team as well as recognizing other teams and or individual efforts. Those who are sharing your story, celebrate them. It can go a long way in building ambassadors of the project. I truly believe that letting others take the credit is one of the best ways you can earn buy-in. So take time to celebrate those individuals. So you've got a little context of Libro, the journey we've been on, and a few of the things we've done to gain buy-in across the organization. All told, these data projects have consumed a lot of my time, a lot of my team's time, and a lot of Libro's time, effort, and resources. And one of the main questions we need to continue to ask is it adding the value we wanted and expected? Do those end results justify the time and effort we've invested? Well, yeah, so far so good. Our initial goal was to develop a lens and focus our resources on growing with specific markets in Southwestern Ontario. That's what we wanted to do. And I'm really excited to say that today Libro strategic planning integrates these custom segments. It's built into our corporate plans. Brand messaging, imagery, campaigns reflect the target segments we're focused on. We leverage these segments to set growth and owner targets, which is huge, by the way, because this impacts everybody with their variable comp, with the targets that we're setting. We actively leverage segments and other initiatives like proactive outreach, market expansion, and location design. And more importantly, people are asking for more when we work into projects with them. They want to know how this applies and how we can use it. So overall, we feel really strongly about the culture shift and change towards these segments that has been created over the past couple of years. Now, more objectively, we're all data people. That's important in this as well. So while COVID has added a little bit of noise, what we've seen is Libro's average new ownership stay fairly steady over the past 2 to 3 years, which you might go, that's not so great. But in that same time, we've seen an increase of 10 to 26% with the priority market segments that we want to grow with. And so we're seeing above average rates of young and connected and growing suburban, above the average, which is fantastic. And while that's good, we want to see that continue to increase over time. And so we'll continue to evaluate and see what could we do differently to continue to do that. When it comes to using something like custom economic segments, we said, what's the opportunity within our portfolio? How can we run tests within our regions? And so the one on the screen is our Waterloo region, which we ran a pilot of here are owners where we know there's opportunity based on the data that we have. Here's some of that opportunity. Can we engage them in conversation and try and grow those relationships? And you can see we added upwards of 30 million in sales and pipeline through that proactive outreach. Other regions are reaching out to us saying, hey, can we do the same thing? And that's really helping to move this conversation forward. People are starting to see the value. This past year has seen change at an unprecedented level through all the restrictions, working from home, you name it, and no industry has been left unscathed through this. And so, as data people, it's never been more important for us to reflect on how are we using that to add value to our teams and to add value to the people who do business with us. Data is only half the battle in that conversation. Your projects are going to require communications that make the information actionable and as easy to understand as possible. That is the real challenge that we're facing, and how we move from data through those squiggly lines to impact. my team and I don't always get it right. We still have our challenges, and you have to make time to push through it and spend time working through it with others, because it could be the difference maker in your next project. Hopefully one or two things resonated with you in that. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to share some of those thoughts and insights with you, and looking forward to your questions. Thanks.